back to Medical Compliance with Clarissa. I'm Clarissa Benfield, our Global Director and Business Line Leader for our medical business here at Intertek. And I'm so delighted to be joined for our special 25th episode by my colleague, my manager here, Sunny Rai, President of our Electrical and Connected World business here at Intertek. Sunny, thank you so much for joining us. It's just a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, absolutely! I'm glad I have a opportunity to speak or join. I mean, I've been watching a lot of these episodes and enjoying all the conversations. So I'm glad I could have an opportunity to participate.
Perfect. Well, we're really excited. As I said, this is our 25th episode, so we've covered a lot of interesting topics. I think for you, you have such an interesting background and vantage point in our overall business, not just in where we are now, but of course, where we've come from. You've been with Intertek quite a long time and in the industry. So maybe just so everyone can get to know you a little bit, maybe you can give an introduction to yourself and how you got into the industry and what you're doing now.
Oh, absolutely. I'm honored to be the 25th guest. But no, yeah, I think from background perspective and responsibility perspective, my present responsibility is the president of electrical, transportation technology, and connected world business at Intertek. And so that gives me an opportunity to see a lot of different angles from where the business is going, how it's overlapping with so many other disciplines and areas that we work on, the expertise. From my 10-year perspective, I've been in Intertek over 30 years. Started out as an engineer in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm actually still there, but had an opportunity to work in a lot of different sales and marketing and business development areas. And medical's been one of the areas that I spent a lot of time in my early years as well as an engineer, being in the Bay Area. I mean, the two biggest businesses that here are biotech, medical, and semiconductor, and that's where I spent a lot of my engineering career before I got into the management and business development responsibilities that got me to where I am today.
Yeah, and I think it's super interesting too, as you point out, right? Sitting in the Bay Area, you've really seen technology advance a lot, right? I mean, you've been in the business 30 years. You've seen it move forward so quickly, right? We talk a lot about that in our episodes, right? Just how medical technology has evolved and has moved so rapidly forward. And I think, when we look at our overall Intertek footprint has definitely evolved over the years too. And you mentioned, right, covering electrical transportation. So a lot of the things that have to do with batteries and performance, as well as connected world, right, with the cyber aspect. So you're really kind of hitting it at all levels that certainly support all of our medical device manufacturers that we're working with.
Absolutely. And I think I'll take it a step further. I mean, it's the whole electrification of the world that's bringing so many of those industries together. I mean, a medical device isn't just handheld stethoscope or a small, unit, but it has all the newer technology that's, I mean, the medical devices were the first to adopt a lot of the technology, and now I'm sure you're so familiar with that so many of our accreditors and regulators are starting to pick up on that and creating new requirements for a smart device or an interconnected device or remote operations that a lot of the devices are, have that incorporated into the design of them. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've seen so much of that electrification of the world from implants to wearables to monitoring devices. I mean, it's all over the place. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's, quite interesting as well, right? When you talk about this idea of electrification of the world, and we see a lot of common themes that are throughout our business, right? This idea of the safely, smartly. So maybe you can touch on some of those things as well, right? We talk a lot about this in terms of what we see within the electrical industry in general with all of the different types of products that we're seeing.
Right, I know. Exactly. I think with the electrification and the proliferation of smart devices or connected devices, I think the whole landscape have changed so significantly. In my present responsibility, we try to keep an eye on where the whole industry is going, making sure Intertek services are aligned with what the customers are looking for. And how we do that is to understand that insight from technology perspective, where it's going. So the way I see from that insight perspective is what drives our strategy is, four different factors, and one of them is what we refer to as smartly, and the other one we refer to as safely, sustainably, and then thoughtfully. Smartly, I mean, every device is becoming connected, is becoming smart, and the whole proliferation of the that connectivity and the ease of use, bringing a lot of ease of use, but at the same time, it's bringing a lot of concerns. That the interference that could take place, the cybersecurity and everything that comes into place. We need to make sure all our services are aligned with that, are being directed with having so many smart products out on the market. And then safely, I mean, we're all very familiar. We do safety evaluations on everything, and then COVID kind of exasperated that to make sure everything was safe, not just your house, but your work, your transportation. I mean, we don't see so much of that in the US, but all over the world, the public transportation and everything. We need to make sure there are services, there are devices, they're available to make sure the society as a whole is safe. And then the third one, as I said, is sustainable. I mean, sustainability is the movement of our time, and we need to make sure everything we're doing is sustainable. And that brings a lot of chemical requirements, that brings a lot of interoperability requirements, and everything. So we have a lot of services, strategies that are aligned with that to address the sustainability. And then last but not least, that kind of connects with the smartly part, is what we refer to as thoughtfully, where with the proliferation of social media, there is so much instantaneous feedback that comes back to the manufacturer or from the users of the product. Everything from its usability to its appearance to its disposal, its impact on the environment. It's a great input that we get, from all across the globe. And it's also so fast that we need to take that into consideration in designing our product and in designing our services. So I think if we take all of those into consideration, and there's so much data available to us, from smartly, safely, thoughtfully, and sustainably, that it's just no brainer on how do you strategize, how you develop your services, and it just that's what we look at as the market drivers that help us develop the services. And medical, as I said, already so much in the forefront of all these technologies, all this information.
Yeah, I think that's quite true, right? The medical industry really aligns with a lot of those things, right? Very early on, being concerned, of course, about safety, not just basic safety, but looking at, a risk-based approach, right? Making sure that these products are safe within their environment that they're used in, how they're designed, right? The idea of sustainability and taking medical devices back and either having them recycled or putting back into use, right? There's so much that goes in line with that with the medical industry. I really like what you touched on too, because we do talk a lot about this with this idea of thoughtfully and everyone considering themselves a consumer now, even in the medical devices space, right? It's not just the gadgets and gizmos that you're buying online. It is everything, right? People have opinions. They have thoughts and concerns about how devices are being manufactured or where they're being manufactured or what products are being used within them or what components, right? People have a lot of opinions because we are all now consumers, even in the healthcare space.
Exactly. And that information is so readily available for the manufacturer to design their product, as well as for us to help the manufacturer, achieve the regulatory compliance, as well as meet the expectation of that consumer. And I think that's where the idea that Intertek was the leader in trying to move the industry from TIC to ATIC comes in. Because back when we started in this business, we were expected to just evaluate the product against the regulation. You meet the requirement, you put an ETL label on the product, an NRTL label on the product, and you're done. You move on. That's not sufficient anymore, because the consumer feedback is at a level, and it needs to be taken into consideration that risk-based evaluation, the risk-based quality assurance is very important. And that's all this feedback feeds into that data-based science, where you could use the data to understand the market needs and address those. And that database risk-based evaluation where allows you to take our tech industry that we've been in to ATIC, where the assurance part comes in, that you're not just certifying the product against a standard, but you're assuring that it meets all the expectation of the end user from regulatory perspective, from performance perspective, from quality perspective,
Yeah.
and on and on.
Yeah, and especially on the medical devices side where you have so many
Right.
stakeholders involved, right? I mean, it's not just the patient or the user, right? You have hospital infrastructure, you have all of these individuals that come into play when you're looking at med devices.
Exactly, and it's not the same as an industrial piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
A dirty environment, all grease and everything. I mean, the old industry,
Yeah.
it is all there, and then you're dealing with a person in most cases her immune system is already compromised,
Mm-hmm.
and then the type of requirement, the type of flexibility we have there, or the leadway we have for mistakes or design issues is very small, and then we have to be
Yeah.
very careful with. That's where the data science and taking it from tick to ATIC becomes very important. Just not just meeting the letter of the law, but the assurance that the product completely meets the expectation of the market or the end user.
Yeah, and I think, from your perspective too, Sunny, right? I mean, you have the fortunate privilege, right, to be able to sit on the TIC Council, right, as well. So this idea of ATIC and working together across, with other players in our same field, right, and being part of the TIC Council and really understanding, what's happening, not just to us, but to everybody, so that we're all moving in the same direction to help make the world safer, help make products safer, right, and see all of these advancements that we're seeing in technology and medical and otherwise. So maybe you can touch a little bit on that. I think that's something that's really exciting that's happening in our industry with the TIC Council together, working to help make sure that, as you say, right, it's not just the way of the past with the standard and making sure that you're conforming to standard requirements, but actually look how fast technology is evolving. We as an industry have to be
Right.
moving forward in the same direction to address this.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'm glad you touched on Tech Council, because it's not just us. I mean, we were the first one to look at it and try to move in that direction. But Tech Council, all the tech industry, players come together as a group, as a and working towards the strategy on how we're going to address our customers' need, and as well as looking at the new regulations coming from across the globe, because actually some of the governments, and regulatory bodies from across the globe come to the Tech Council to help them develop new requirements and new regulations, and so they don't become a trade barrier, but actually help the industry move the industry in the right direction. And I think it's very important there that all of our member companies, all of our competitors, and everybody in the tech industry see it the same way, that it's no more just a sticker to say you complied with the requirement. You move to the next step, because that's what the industry is expecting. That's what the regulators, not just the regulator, but even the public, is expecting. So yeah, at Tech Council, it's definitely a discussion to make sure our industry isn't falling behind. Our industry isn't just sticking to issuing a certification against a certain standard. So the discussions are always ongoing. How do we bring more value to the consumers, as well as our direct customers? The consumers, that the users, or the buyers of the product, and not just in medical industry, actually across all industry. But medical's always been at the leading edge of all that. Where
Yeah.
a lot of that is happening. But yeah, I think at Tech Council, absolutely, every major member of the industry is looking at, and how do we move this and become more valuable, and that risk-based assurance, the moving from just tick to ATIC to also provide the assurance services is at the top of the agenda at Tech Council as well.
Right. And I think too, especially when we're seeing things like this introduction of AI into all industries, right? And how quickly that's evolving and changing daily, right? I mean, we're seeing new developments in what AI can do and what that will bring to different products and services and technologies. So, it's more important than ever that we're all aligned together, right? Because there are these major things and major developments that are happening in technology right before our eyes that are going to impact the world as we know it, the way we live as individuals, as consumers, but also the industry in which we work.
Absolutely. And I think AI is also one of the big topics that we discuss all the time, that's being taken into consideration at all standards developing organization, not just at the council as an association, but also the regulatory bodies, because it's something. And that's where we as the third party service provider, tech or a tech service provider, can play a big role. It's not just putting the regulation on the books, but it has to be enforceable. It has to be repeatable. It has to be uniform across all those different type of products and industries. And I think we as the tech industry, the leaders in the tech industry, we have to take the leading role and make sure the regulations that are being developed are implementable. They're actually addressing the needs, not just of the regulator, but also the general public and the manufacturer. It just so happens that we happen to be the ones that are kind of bring all that together, from manufacturers to regulators to end user, because we're trying to address all of those needs. So
Yeah, and I think it's
all that is addressed in the new standards and discussions.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting to see where our industry is going too, right? I think for a long time it was very, moving at the same pace, and now we have a lot of excitement in terms of, what the technology is doing, how we're able to support, how we're working together. I think even just on the Intertek side, as you said, right, being here 30 years, you've seen a lot of change, right? We've had all sorts of new things that we've introduced just in our overall mindset, really focusing on what we can do to be making the world more sustainable, what we can be doing to making a difference in our communities and societies, all of the things that we're trying to bring forth. So that way we're bringing this level of value with our principles and our vested interest of this idea, wanting to make the world a better, safer, more sustainable place.
Absolutely. Our motto of bringing quality, safety, and sustainability to life, it plays a big role, in our strategy and in the medical industry, in medical devices. I mean, the changes that I've seen over the years that I've been here, I mean, there's no more, segmentation between industry. Everything is so intertwined. I mean, just look at my responsibility of electrical, connected world, and transportation technology. The all electrical products, as I said earlier, are smart products. They all have connected features in them. So it's not just enough to just do an electrical safety evaluation of the product or to understand. You need to look at all the other risks that come into the picture in a smart device. And all the interoperability issues that you have to consider, all the cybersecurity issues that you have to consider on that same device, that in the past all you did was do a product safety evaluation. You take it a step further with the whole electrification and transportation technology. I mean, the whole electrification of the transportation system with batteries and the connected world part that comes into it, the interoperability and the connectivity that comes into it, that plays a role towards the medical devices as well. Everything is becoming handheld. The cutting the cord, and so the batteries bring the convenience, but they also bring a lot of additional risks and issues with that. I mean, every day we see a scooter getting overcharged and catching on fire in somebody's house, or watching a car catching on fire on the street, and we see that in our labs every day. Those type of tests we do day in, day out. So I think it's what I've seen over the years of how the whole thing comes together. Even the sustainability, the chemical requirements, every product you need to make sure is sustainable. We're not just evaluating it for its compliance for today. Now the industry have reached a level where we're looking at from cradle to grave, making sure the product is designed properly, it's meeting the regulation, its usability, its interoperability, its flexibility with being, code connected versus always having to be plugged in, to sustainability, to making sure all the chemicals and disposal, everything. So I think, I think it's gone from the days of us being an industrial equipment expert, or being a medical equipment expert, or being a connected world expert. It's all coming together, and I think we see that every day.
I think that's super important to touch on, right? And we've talked about that on this podcast before and other episodes of varying topics, right? This idea that you can't really put people into a box anymore and say, oh, this is just a manufacturer of industrial products, or just medical products, or just IT products, right? Because everything is so intertwined now, right? So many manufacturers are touching multiple spaces, as you say, or it's impossible to say, oh, we're only applying these standards to this product, because now you're introducing layers of technology or layers of feature. And now you're thinking, oh, well, not only is this a battery, but it's wirelessly charged. So now we have to think about what are the risks associated with some sort of medical device or medical application if the wireless charging isn't working or it's not fully charged, right? So there's so many nuances now that didn't exist before. It's not the bring a product, set it down, this is the only standard, this is the requirement, test it. Now we really have to work together, I think, a lot more from a ATIC service provider side, as well as with the manufacturers, to really make sure that we're looking at a product holistically, understanding everything that it does and saying, these are the best standards that apply, but you may also have to consider this, and this.
Exactly. I mean, my first exposure to that was when I was working on the semiconductor industry. Looking at a semiconductor manufacturing equipment, we had to worry about X-rays, you had to worry about vacuum, you had to worry about chemicals, you had to worry about robotics. The standard that we used to evaluate it against had 20 different sections to it. Electrical was one of the 20.
Yeah.
And there was ergonomics, there's chemical, there's the human interface to its disposal and all the chemical requirements and everything. And I think that has become a norm for everything. I mean, not just the semiconductor manufacturing equipment, but you see it more in medical equipment than any place else. Industrial equipment quite a bit as well, but medical, absolutely. I mean, there's robots that are being remote controlled. There's medicine being delivered from controlled from so far away. You have to worry about everything from connectivity to cybersecurity and just the overall performance of the product and its impact on the patient and everything. So no, I think that's been the biggest change. I mean, it again, just like anything. I mean, it's just an electric car. Like we sometimes joke about it. It's not a car; it's a computer on wheels.
Exactly.
So much technology in that, and with a large battery and a large computer, it's really what's running it and everything. And that, a lot of those changes absolutely in the industry.
Yeah, and I think another thing from your perspective as well, which I think is interesting, right? Having a whole lens view vantage point as to where we're making investments within Intertek. Of course, you cover a lot of our industries with electrical, connected world, and transportation technologies. You and I work together a lot on the medical side with what we're trying to do from an expansion standpoint in investments in new technologies and staff in certain areas. Is there anything you can share just kind of about what your thought process is or your vision when you're looking at, okay, when we see all of these different industries together and we see medical and we want to make sure that we're investing in the right places and some of the things that we've been working on to expand?
No, I think it's very much what I shared with you before. I mean, it's the electrification of the whole world that directs what we do, from batteries and from energy sustainability, not just chemicals, but also energy efficiency, all that. So that drives our investment. And the third one is the proliferation of the whole smart devices, all the social media, the consumer input. How do you take that and incorporate that into the design of the product? So it's not just a yes or no of compliance against a standard, but more of a risk-based, data-based risk assessment that you perform. So I think it's a combination of that driven through, like what I mentioned, smartly, safely, sustainably, and thoughtfully. I mean, that's what drives our strategy. That's how we get our direction on exactly where to invest. And it's really just those areas, from electrification to sustainability to thoughtfully the input that you're getting from social media on a daily basis.
Yeah.
That you take that into consideration and you make sure you're properly aligned with the industry, and your investments and your hirings and your training are all dictated by that.
Yeah, and I think that's exciting that what we've seen on the medical side, just with how much that we're seeing in terms of technology and the investments that we wanted to make. Of course, we're adding more capabilities for home healthcare, right? We've seen this huge push towards these home devices, which go just in line with what you're talking about from a smart, thoughtful, connected type products, right? So we're making big investments in home healthcare. So we're able to support, as we see, like you said, right? Products getting smaller, fitting in the palm of your hand, things that are portable, right? Things that are now being used healthcare in people's day-to-day life, which is so exciting, right? But creates a lot of additional testing requirements that we have to make sure we're prepared to be able to support manufacturers with, right? I mean, with all of the shock and vibration and things that we have to be able to do to simulate real world environments and concerns.
Exactly, and it's not just, it's also the growth of the middle class across. So we're not just targeting one country or two. You really have to take the whole globe into consideration when you're designing your services, as well as when you're designing your product, because there is no medical product being sourced or developed for one country, and so many new markets are coming in play, that where the just middle class is just growing, just exploding, and that are able, the affordability is increasing in all those areas, and medical is at the forefront of all that. Everything with everybody comfort and the medical care, and as soon as they can afford it, I mean that so in addition to just all the services, you also have to be understand and target your solutions to all the markets, all the new markets.
Yeah, and I think it's really exciting, everything that we're doing. Of course, like I said, investing in home healthcare, investing in our staff, and building out a lot more expertise in some of these key areas. As we're seeing technology evolve, we want to make sure that we have expertise that matches that and is paired to that. Everything we're investing in, with new capacity for implantables and wearables and things that we're seeing, continually adding as we see these products becoming more and more prevalent. So super exciting to see all of the things that we have from an expansion perspective and all of the investments we're making to continue to be able to support the industry as it evolves within medical and otherwise, right, within the rest of the organization and these products that are coming out with new technologies. Well, Sunny, this was fantastic. So great to have you here for our 25th episode. Such a treat to have you join us. I know you're busy. Really appreciate your time. Is there anything you want to leave our audience with, just in terms of what you're seeing, or anything else you want to share before we end for today?
No, I think thank you for giving me the opportunity. I mean, it was great. I've seen a lot of the episodes before, and I enjoyed them, and I'm glad I got an opportunity to come and participate as well. And I think from like you said, from my experience perspective, or what we're doing recently, I think it's the whole the idea of electrification and sustainability and proliferation of the whole connected devices and social media. That's really what's directing our services, and we will continue to do that. We in my job and part of the executive team is to understand where the whole industry is going and aligning ourselves with the needs of our customers. And I think I'm proud of the fact that we saw the tech moving to ATIC for everybody else, and then now the rest of the world is following that, and it's a great feeling to be able to understand what the market needs and be able to address those ahead of the somebody else asking. Just so.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you got an opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Well, yes, thank you so much. Certainly no stagnancy in our industry, and we will keep moving forward and evolving and doing the best we can to support everybody out there. So if anyone has any questions, of course, feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to answer them. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.